You're watching the Mountain Morning Show on Park City Television, and joining me in the studio, the author of a Recruiter Guy's Guide to Finding a Job, Recruiter Guy Bill Humbert.
Joe, how are you?
Hello, sir. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Excellent. I'm happy to have you here. And something we don't consider often when we look at the unemployment numbers, and they came out last week, and we heard some numbers that sort of sounded, they didn't sound great. They weren't as promising as the ones the previous two quarters were. But there's some other things that don't always happen with those numbers that we don't always hear.
That's correct. You know, Joe, the numbers that are reported are Table U3 under the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Right.
And those are only people who are currently on unemployment benefits.
Right. Doesn't talk about the ones that are looking that aren't. It doesn't talk about the ones who have been looking and have finally run out of unemployment benefits. So there's a lot of people who aren't included there.
That's correct. Those people are included under Table U6.
Right.
And at the end of May, that unemployment rate was 13.8%.
Wow. And you often hear other broadcasters say something like, those are the people who have they were no longer looking for a job, which isn't necessarily the case at all.
They're working harder than ever.
Yeah.
You know, because they
they're
don't have
desperate.
any benefits. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, something else that we don't think about too, we often just think of, our kind of employment as a whole, just all of us looking for jobs that, those people that might be. We don't often think about, the folks that are kind of have been at a higher echelon who find it very difficult because they are now living out in a means which is probably well beyond what they're able to find in the way of employment. So executives kind of fall into that group.
That's correct. There's probably, and I may be guessing low, but there's probably somewhere between 2 and 3 million executives, vice president and above, who are currently looking for jobs.
This is a substantial number. I don't know that people are aware of this.
They're probably not. They just think of, the normal Joe, and they don't think about these people that, as a result of right-sizing or downsizing or
moving the company offshore.
Acquisition, moving the companies offshore. I mean, there's so many different factors that not only do the people down below them get laid off, but also executives get laid off.
Well, and this brings up an interesting point. As we mentioned, typically living at a different level, and it's all the same. We talk about this a lot with folks. They think that, they've got so much money, they can do whatever they want. Not necessarily. They are living within their means, which may be at such a much higher level that going and getting any other job probably isn't going to be enough to keep them going. So they're now looking for a very small niche.
Very, very small niche, and very competitive one. Because if they were very strong as an executive and they got laid off, well, that's true all the way across that strata.
So have you run into a few of these people specifically?
I did a recruiting contract for Mainstream Management last August through this past February. And what we were doing is identifying CEOs, COOs, and CFOs with revenue growth strategy experience and experience in corporate turnarounds. And from August till February, I interviewed with 2-hour interviews 93 of these people.
Wow. That's 180 hours of your time right there.
That's right. Now that's without even searching to find them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, I have to ask you this, because this is something that I'm sure somebody at home watching this is going to ask. Do these people run a high risk of not getting back to where they are if they take anything else? I mean, is that kind of is there some thinking there that you want to try to stay at the level you're at? Does it hurt to go and look at mid-level management or something like that, or upper-level management?
The problem they're having is that in the past, other people have done that and said, I'm going to be happy at this mid-level manager position. And then 6 months into that job, they get an offer at the higher level.
So no one wants to hire them in the first place in that level.
Right.
Ooh, that's scary. I've seen that happen to people.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, they're kind of stuck. They really are in a position that's probably a little more tenuous than many of us.
Oh, absolutely. And they've got the additional problem of never having had to look for a job in the past.
Right.
They've always been recruited by either a professional recruiter or by friends who work in a new place. And so they're always able to say in the past, well, in order for me to come to work for you, I need.
Right. And this brings us to 5 things that they should or should not do in the case. whatever the case is.
Exactly. The first is it's very important for them to get rid of the I need piece.
Yeah.
Because they're now in a sales process. Now they have to be focused on the you.
Yeah.
And what is it that you need? And then I have to figure out how I can structure filling what it is that they need, that the potential client or customer.
It's not a buyer or a seller's market, I suppose. Now it's
not for them. No.
Yeah.
No. And the other problem they have, let's face it, when you're 50 and above, and you're talking to a CEO who's 39, that person's going to be thinking pretty much their level, a couple of years either way. So, people scream age discrimination. It's just human.
Right.
To bring people in that are like me. I think companies are really missing an opportunity by doing that.
Right.
Because you have all that seasoning that this person can bring.
Yeah. A lot of experience.
Right.
Yeah, and that real world experience is the big thing that you can't always get any other way. Well, you really can't get it any other way.
You can't get it any other way. And so that person can see the company going down a path they shouldn't be going down and maybe stop them before they get down too far and lose a lot of money as a result.
Interesting.
So that's the first thing.
That's the first one.
The second thing they need to do really seriously is to right size their life. And so companies right size by spending less. Well, they got to do the same thing. So, maybe if they belong to an expensive country club, maybe they need to think about not belonging in it anymore.
Now, there is some networking that goes on sometimes. So if that's something that you're really relying on, maybe you keep it. But
well, look at return on investment. If you're actually getting a return on investment from belonging to that country club and networking there, then you keep it. But if you don't get that return on investment, or if you're not networking there, which you should be, then you need to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But learning to live on a little less. I would think one of the big ones, selling that car. If you've got the big expensive car, downsizing the car is a good plan. Mm-hmm. Maybe even considering downsizing the house. That's a big expense.
Absolutely. And the car, that one could be just keep it a couple years longer. Cars are better made now than they ever been. Shoot, I've got a 95 Subaru SVX with 217,000 miles on it.
Exactly.
It's a great car.
Yeah.
So, don't trade it in every 2 years. Keep it for 3 or 4 years or longer keep it in shape.
All right, so that's 2. What's number 3?
Number 3 is to look out, now that you're looking at the company and their needs, and now that you've right-sized yourself, now it's important to look 2 years out. Where do I want to be 2 years from now? Last month we talked about using SCAMPs for setting goals.
Yep.
And so this is a great application of that. Figure out where you want to be in 2 years and then use SCAMPs. And the goal has to be specific, challenging, attainable, measurable, public among the people who will support you, and a specific end date. So if you have all of those, now you can set that goal to where you want to be in 2 years and be able to measure your progress towards getting there. And 2 years from now, it may be retirement, depending on how old you are. Yeah.
If that's true, you better figure out how you're going to put a whole lot of that money away.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
All right, number 4.
Number 4 is make a list of all the things that you do well, both professionally and personally, and go back through and put an asterisk next to the things that you do well that you enjoy doing. And then focus on those and using those skills to then help that company moving forward.
Now this is important because a part of that is when you've identified these things that you know how to do well, that you enjoy, that are things that you have some examples of, you need to have those examples ready to go so you can tell some stories.
Exactly. People remember stories, they don't remember facts.
Yeah.
And so it's very important to create those stories that demonstrate you have those skills ahead of time so you're not trying to do it during the interview.
All right, number 5.
Number 5 is, that one's one that is always really important because you got to network. And, network is not the opera singer warming up, me.
Right, can't be about you.
Right. Networking
We saw what happened with that.
Yeah.
Bill Humbert left the room.
I was running around. Networking requires give and take. And notice the first word is give. And so it's important that the people you're networking with, you're also giving for them. You know, what is it that I can do to help you? And usually when you're in a networking situation like a business after hours, chamber after hours, the people are there for a reason. They're there to network. And so ask them, you know, you're here to network. Why are you networking? Maybe I can help you. And if you help them, then they're going to be much more willing to help you.
Very good idea. Yeah, you'd be surprised how maybe if you just help them fill something in the low end of the job of the totem pole, they might have a job for you at the top end if that's where you belong.
Exactly.
That could be quite that could really work well for you.
It could. And so, you know, a lot of people really don't know how to network. They know they should, but they really don't know how. But that's how.
Yeah. The biggest part probably of networking is listening.
Absolutely. Yep.
Interesting. So these new things, these 5 steps, these are straight out of your next book.
Yes, the next book is in creation, and I have exciting news.
Yeah, this is really great on the first book.
And so on Recruiter Guy's Guide to Finding a Job, this past week I signed an agreement with Lisa Hagen Literary, and she's a literary agent, and she's going to represent my book and then future books.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you've been all over the country signing them and talking about the great things that you can learn from them. And clearly, this is yet again another terrific lesson from the Recruiter Guy's Guide. I appreciate you being here as always.
Thanks, Joe.
Bill Humbert,
Yep.
the Recruiter Guy. All right, we'll be back with more on the Mountain Morning Show right after these messages.